15 to 20 years ago, the internet was an escape from the real world. Now the real world is an escape from the internet. Liberals believe the internet is the real world. Conservatives know that it isn't. In today's video, I'm going to show you more proof for something that I alleged a long time ago about what's really driving the progressive, liberal, Democrat agenda. Some have laughed at me for it, but there is yet even more proof of this. Who would have thought this would be the reality? A Democrat author has written a book claiming that Barack Obama was a parasite who sucked the Democratic Party dry to get reelected. Now, recently I also did a video saying that Democrats were much like bed bugs, another kind of parasite. But this is a liberal, progressive Democrat author talking about the reality of what happened under Barack Obama. Quote, "The numbers are hard to ignore. During his 8 years in office, Obama oversaw a net loss of 947 state legislative seats, 63 House seats, 11 senators, and 13 governors." And we're just getting warmed up for what's going to happen under Biden in 2022 and 2024. The same thing's going to happen. The same thing is going to happen. They're throwing him under the bus, and by default, also President Joe Biden. They are beside themselves over this issue with Israel, where he came out and endorsed Israel, and now saying that he's going to drop student loan forgiveness, one of his big campaign promises. That made the youth think, erroneously, that they were living in the real world when they weren't. It was all a giant internet fantasy. Now, funny story. Last night on Twitch, I had someone come to the stream and start pushing some of this liberal nonsense. Now, I truly believe this person had a good heart, but you could tell they were young, and you could tell that they were living in this utopian fantasy, because over and over again, this person used the word should, meaning in his particular case, that people should never lose their homes because medical bills are so high, trying to defend Obamacare, that somehow it's better than the system that was in place before, when what do we see? There's platinum plans and bronze plans and silver plans, and there are people still without insurance, and people still can't afford it. Nothing has changed. It's just that money has been taken out of the hands of the private sector and put in the hands of government. The private sector and government are both human beings, both imperfect, both flawed. And that's life. Life is not fair. That's something that college professors will never teach their students. And the young are falling for it. Now, what is this fantasy utopia world? Where is it coming from? The argument that was being made by this gentleman on the Twitch stream, and oh, by the way, you can catch us there every night, 9:30, 10 o'clock, over at twitch.tv/Florida Maquis, just like it sounds. And we have some pretty great discussions there while we're playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is a really, really fun game. But the argument, meaning that if I don't have the perfect solution to the problem, I can't argue against bad solutions. That's called tu quoque, Latin for you do that too. It's a logic fallacy. And one of the more popular memes of this is that, there's this guy, he's a serf, he's suffering, and he doesn't have very much. And he said, we should improve society somewhat. And then, of course, some smartass jumps out of a well and says, but you participate in society. That's curious. I am very intelligent. This is what folks do. This is what they've been taught to do. Now, ask yourself a question. Where did anyone get the idea that there was ever any possibility of living in a perfect utopian society where there was no unfairness, where people could always afford medical treatment, because this guy kept saying this over and over again, that everyone everywhere should always get the equal level of medical treatment, that should be the case. Once again, that word should. Where did they get that idea? I know you think it's crazy, but the current crop that are in charge have bought into this nonsense Star Trekian fantasy that there's some future world that we can create where there's no poverty and there's no hunger and there's no inequality and people don't have to worry about money. The plot of every Star Trek The Next Generation episode is this: find some place where people aren't being liberals, fly our magical ship over there, beam down and pontificate about why they're wrong, and if they don't agree with us, we'll blast them with our photon torpedoes. That is the plot of virtually every episode, and this went on for over a decade, and there were 3 spinoffs. This is what these people believe now. There's a specific aspect of this that is applied lately that I have proof for. Character on the right, Cheryl Gates McFadden, played this doctor, Beverly Crusher. And they all had these magical little devices that no matter what happened, they could just wave them over your body like a magic wand, and you were all better again. Now, in the series, this particular character, this Gates McFadden, became a captain of this hospital ship, the USS Pasteur. Was a very powerful ship, very large. What happened in early 2020? What was their first knee-jerk reaction? In the 2 biggest liberal enclaves in the country, New York and Los Angeles. The USNS Mercy hospital ship went to LA, and the Comfort went to New York. That was their first response. Hospital ships. Hospital ships. This is how they have been manipulating people for decades. Within that group, within the group of liberals that are in charge, the late 40s, early 50s, they have this sicko twisted fantasy based on Star Trek that there is some future they need to create. Now, how did they really get people to buy into it? This is how. This want to. They cannot handle living in a real world. They cannot handle living in a world where things are unfair, where bad things happen. They have had other episodes where they talk about having a weather net where it only rains in certain places at certain times. It never ruins anybody's vacation. There are no hurricanes. There are no tornadoes. There are no volcanoes. Virtually every aspect of life in that series was controlled by liberal theology. And actually, it's theosophy. Hospital ships. The idea of a perfect world. The idea of all disease being cured. All of this comes from this series. And they're still making new spin-offs. This started back in the 80s, in the late 80s, 87, I think. So we are 34 years into this. They still have a series, Picard, and they've rehashed the Data android character so many times it's ridiculous. And the reality for the actors and actresses is this. They're terrified of their fans. And they've even said so much. Because their fans took it so personally and so to heart. Some of them have created these elaborate sets that far exceeded the actual sets that were used in the shooting of the TV series and in the movies. And they've created fan fiction. And it's become this psychological dysphoria that literally directs their world. Their world is the internet. Without the internet, for them, there is no world. And that's just more proof of it. And it's sad. It's a sign of mental illness, but it'll give you an insight into who you're dealing with and what's motivating them. So, anyway, would love to see you. The crowds are getting a lot bigger at Twitch lately. Later at night, we're getting a lot more viewers. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a huge, huge open world where you can go anywhere and do just about anything at any time. And here you're seeing you take control of this tiny, small boat just to kind of motor around this lake and discover things. And then there's a larger ship that we have that you use to traverse the seas. There are underground tombs. There are DLCs that we've explored in other iterations. We haven't done it on Nightmare level yet, which is where we're playing right now. So much. So many things to do. The game is virtually endless. So anyway, I will leave it there. But God bless. Like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next time.